And put the phone down right now. Hands where I can see them.
Why'd I have to put my phone down?
Your husband is on the floor having a seizure. Neighbors called it in after hearing screams. You were right there. Didn't call 911. Didn't help. Just kept typing.
He does this sometimes. It's not that serious. I figured he'd snap out of it.
He coded twice in the ambulance. They barely got him back. Put the phone down. Now.
The first sound on the body cam footage is a thud, then silence, then the tap of a phone keyboard. When Officer Trent Calloway entered the Barker residence at 7:28 p.m. on March 10, 2022, he found Derek Barker face down on the living room floor, still in his work clothes, unresponsive, barely breathing. His wife, Peggy, was on the couch, 3 feet away, phone in hand. Her first words to the officer were not, "Help him." They were not, "Thank God you're here." She looked up irritated and said, "How did you even know to come here?" A neighbor had called. Peggy never did. What the responding officer didn't know yet, what a home security camera had silently recorded for 47 minutes, was everything. A seizure. No 911 call. 73 group chat messages sent in the same window. A husband who was still alive when help arrived. And dead by morning. This is the story of what Peggy Barker chose to watch, and what she chose to ignore. Peggy Annette Barker was born in Dayton, Ohio, in 1988, the second of 2 children in a house that was rarely quiet and almost never present. Her father clocked doubles at a machine parts plant 6 days a week. Her mother was home, technically, but her attention lived somewhere else. On the phone, on the neighborhood gossip, on everyone's business except the business of the 2 kids sitting at her kitchen table. Peggy adapted. She learned that if no one was going to come to her, she'd go to everyone else. By high school, she knew every name in every hallway. Her yearbook voted her most likely to know everyone, not most likely to succeed, not most likely to lead. Know everyone. The distinction matters. She attended Columbus State for a year and a half before quietly drifting out. In the summer of 2012, at a mutual friend's cookout, she met Derek Barker. He was attentive in a way she wasn't used to. He remembered things. He showed up. She was charming, magnetic, and, as one bridesmaid would later tell investigators, always half somewhere else. They married in 2015. Derek didn't see the warning in that description. He should have. Derek Allen Barker was the kind of man who showed up early and stayed late. 37 years old, logistics coordinator for a regional freight company out of Columbus. The guy who remembered your coffee order, covered your shift without being asked, and sent a follow-up email to make sure the problem actually got solved. His co-workers liked him. His neighbors liked him. His neurologist, Dr. Weston Price, described him as one of the most cooperative patients he'd treated in 20 years of practice. In 2018, Derek had a seizure at his workstation. No warning, no history. His head struck the edge of a metal shelf on the way down. His supervisor found him on the floor of the supply room and called 911 before Derek had stopped shaking. That part matters. Someone called. He was diagnosed with focal epilepsy, medicated, monitored. The episodes never disappeared entirely. 2, sometimes 3 a year, but he managed them the way he managed everything, quietly, methodically, without complaint. Dr. Price gave both Derek and Peggy a written seizure response protocol at their joint appointment. The instructions were not complicated. Roll him onto his side. Time the episode. Call 911 if it runs past 5 minutes. Store if his breathing changes. Peggy signed the care acknowledgement form. Dr. Price kept a copy. Derek kept a copy. Peggy's copy ended up in the second drawer of their kitchen, under a takeout menu, a dead pen, and a coupon for a pizza place that had closed 2 years prior. She knew what to do. That was never the question. Nobody fights in a politely cold marriage. That's the thing people don't understand. There's no screaming, no broken dishes, no dramatic ultimatum at the front door. There's just distance. Practiced, comfortable, almost voluntary distance. By early 2022, the Barkers had perfected it. Derek had started keeping a journal sometime in January, not the kind anyone announces. Just a plain black notebook kept in the nightstand on his side of the bed. Investigators found it 8 days after his death. They read it so the jury eventually would. The February 14th entry was 11 words. Made dinner. She ate in the bedroom. I don't think she noticed. He didn't write Valentine's Day. He didn't need to. The March 2nd entry was quieter in a different way. Asked if she wanted to come to the neurologist with me. She said she had plans. I didn't ask what plans. He stopped asking. While Derek was writing in a notebook that no one was supposed to read, Peggy was building something she absolutely wanted people to see. 3 active group chats. A neighborhood Facebook group she didn't just participate in, she ran it, moderated it, shaped it. A TikTok account with 4,200 followers that she checked the way some people check their pulse. Online, Peggy Barker was warm, funny, and reliably present. In the house on Alderton Drive, her husband was eating dinner alone and wondering whether she'd noticed the date. She had 4,200 strangers paying attention to her. One person needed her. She had already stopped noticing him. The security camera timestamp reads 5:55 p.m. when the front door opens. Derek sets his bag down by the entryway the way he always does. Same spot, same motion. He flips through the mail without sitting down. 2 bills, a grocery circular, something from the insurance company. He sets it all on the side table and calls out toward the living room. Peggy doesn't look up. She's on the couch, legs tucked under her, phone tilted at the angle people use when they're deep in a thread. She says something back. The ambient mic catches syllables, not words. Derek moves into the kitchen, opens the refrigerator, closes it. He doesn't start dinner. He doesn't ask if she ate. In the 45 minutes that follow, investigators would reconstruct fewer than 40 words exchanged between them. Not 40 sentences, 40 words, less than a text message. At 6:38 p.m., Derek walks back into the living room and lowers himself into the armchair across from her. He rubs the back of his neck. Then he says it, quietly, almost to himself. "I've got a headache." Dr. Price had listed it explicitly in the seizure protocol. Headache as a precursor, a warning the body gives before it stops cooperating. Peggy's phone record shows she was mid-reply in a group chat at 6:38 p.m. The message sent at 6:39 p.m. is a laughing emoji. She did not respond to him. At 6:41 p.m., Derek's body stiffened, his jaw locked, his arms drew inward, and he fell forward off the chair. The camera caught all of it. So did the couch. The timestamp on the security camera does not lie. It never does. That's the thing about recorded evidence. It has no mercy, no loyalty, and no interest in anyone's version of events. 6:41 p.m., Derek falls. The camera catches Peggy's head come up. She looks at him, really looks, the way you look at something that surprised you. 11 seconds pass. Then her eyes drop back to her phone. 11 seconds. By 6:44, she sent a laughing emoji. The prosecution would later put that timestamp on a screen in front of 12 jurors. 3 minutes after her husband's body hit the floor. A laughing emoji. At 6:52, she gets up. The camera follows her movement. Into the kitchen, past the counter, past the drawer where the seizure protocol sits under a takeout menu. She steps over Derek's outstretched arm the way you step over a dog that's napping in a doorway. She comes back with a glass of water. For herself. She sits back down. By 7:03, the camera's ambient mic begins picking up something new. Derek's breathing, ragged, uneven, wrong. The kind of sound that reaches something primal in the human brain, the part that knows before the mind catches up. Peggy does not move. At 7:19, she records a voice note, laughing, sends it. At 7:24, a neighbor named Brenda Kowalski hears something through the shared wall she can't quite name. She calls 911 anyway. Officer Trent Calloway arrives at 7:28. Derek is alive. He will not be by midnight. 47 minutes, one call was made. Brenda made it. Derek had bought it in January, a small, wide-angle security camera mounted above the living room entryway. The kind you set up in 20 minutes and mostly forget about. A package had gone missing off a neighbor's porch 2 houses down, and that was enough for Derek. He registered it to his email, linked it to the cloud, tested the motion trigger, and moved on. Peggy knew it was there. She'd watched him install it. But knowing something is there and registering its presence are two different things. And somewhere between January and March, the camera had become part of the wall. It wasn't invisible. It just stopped mattering to her. The motion trigger activated 14 times during the 47-minute window. 14! Every time Peggy shifted on the couch, every time her arm moved, every time she crossed the room, the camera was watching, logging, uploading. And all of it going quietly to a cloud account in Derek's name, an account he would never log into again. Detective Yvonne Haskins pulled the footage 18 hours after Derek was pronounced dead. She had been on the job for 19 years, homicides, child cases, things she'd learned to carry and things she'd learned to set down. She watched the footage twice before she said anything to anyone. What she later told the court was precise and carefully worded, the way detectives are trained to be. She said it was among the most disturbing things she had reviewed in her career. Then she paused and added the part that stayed with every person in that courtroom. Not because of what happened in the footage, because of what didn't. Derek was still on life support when they put the cuffs on her. 9:15 a.m., March 11th. The hospital corridor. Peggy had been sitting in a waiting area chair for 2 hours, not pacing, not crying, not asking nurses for updates, just sitting. Phone face down on her knee for once, which detectives would later note felt like its own kind of statement. Detective Haskins made the arrest herself. The interview ran 3 hours, and the thing that unsettled everyone in that room, the thing that made it into Haskins' report and eventually into the trial record, was how composed Peggy was. Not composed the way grief sometimes looks from the outside. Composed the way someone is when they've already decided on their story and see no reason to deviate from it. She answered every question. She didn't lawyer up. She was, in the clinical language of the report, cooperative and controlled. Her explanation was 4 sentences. He had seizures before. He always came out of them. I didn't think this one was different. I didn't know it was that bad. When Haskins slid the laptop across the table and pressed play on the security footage, Peggy watched it without speaking. The room was quiet for a long time after it ended. Then, I didn't know it was that bad. The same 4 words, like she'd rehearsed them, or like nothing she'd just watched had changed anything. Haskins noted one final detail at the bottom of her report. In 3 hours of questioning, with her husband dying 1 floor above her, Peggy Barker did not ask a single question about his condition. Not one. The defense had 1 argument, and Roland Fitch made it as cleanly as the evidence allowed. Peggy wasn't a nurse. She wasn't a paramedic. She was a woman who had seen her husband's seizures before, who believed, genuinely believed, that he would come out of it the way he always had. Criminal negligence, Fitch told the jury, requires more than a bad decision. It requires a conscious disregard for human life. And you cannot prove, he said, what was happening inside her mind. The prosecution didn't argue about her mind. They pressed play. 4 minutes and 22 seconds of security footage. No narration, no commentary. Just the timestamp ticking in the corner and Peggy Barker moving through her own living room, stepping over her husband's arm, returning with a glass of water, settling back into the couch cushion. 2 jurors cried. Most of the gallery went very still. Peggy looked at the table in front of her. Then the prosecutor picked up the seizure protocol, the one with Peggy's signature on the bottom, and read it aloud, line by line, slowly. Roll him onto his side. Time the episode. Call 911 if it exceeds 5 minutes or if breathing becomes irregular. He set it down and said nothing else. The jury was out for 6 hours, not 6 days, not 6 weeks, 6 hours. Enough time for a meal, a careful review of the evidence, and a unanimous decision that required no further debate. The foreperson stood, read the verdict. Peggy did not flinch, did not exhale, did not reach for anyone's hand. She just sat there, the way she'd always sat there, while the room fell apart around her. Loretta Barker had been sitting in that courtroom for 3 days. She'd watched the footage. She'd heard the medical examiner explain in clinical language and the precise window during which her brother's death became inevitable. She'd listened to a defense attorney argue that her sister-in-law simply hadn't understood the severity of what she was watching. On June 8th, she stood up and said what she actually thought. Her victim impact statement ran 9 minutes. She talked about Derek's laugh, about the way he called their mother every Sunday without being reminded, about the seizure protocol, how he'd told Loretta about the appointment, mentioned that Peggy had signed the form, said it made him feel better knowing she knew what to do. He trusted her, Loretta said. That's the part I can't get past. He trusted her? She turned at the end, looked directly at Peggy. Did he make a sound when he fell? Did you hear him? The courtroom held its breath. Peggy said nothing. Judge Carolyn Whitmore let the silence sit for a moment before she spoke. When she did, she didn't reach for formality. She was plain and she was direct. You were not a bystander. You were his wife. You were trained. You were present. And you chose, in the most literal sense of that word, to do nothing. 12 years, Ohio Reformatory for Women, parole eligibility at year 8. Peggy was led out of the courtroom without a word. Derek's phone was returned to his mother after the trial. His journal went with it. Peggy's phone was entered into evidence the morning of her arrest. It has not been returned.